Alright guys, so just a quick one, this time my Assetto Corsa Competizione settings, ACC. So yeah, force feedback, what settings do I run, so on. So here's what I have set in game. So just a reminder, I'm using Fanatec DD2 and Husingfeld sprint pedals, right? So throttle, brake and all of that is not running any you know, extra like limits or anything like that. It's just as it is, right? So that works for me and all good. In terms of force feedback then, I have the gain set at 50%. No minimum force applied. The damper at 10%. I think it's a good number that, you know, it's direct enough. And with ACC, because all of the information is coming from the front axle of the car, you have to be careful about putting any damping into that, because on the one hand, yes, it can feel a bit harsh. On the other hand, you know, to be competitive, I think you need that directness in the feedback. Dynamic damping is at 100. How that tends not to impact too much, I think, even with that set that high and the normal damping damper, if you like, turn down. It's not that much of an issue. Alright, let's have a look then at my Fanatec settings in Fanalab. Let me just tab out of this and yeah, let's bring up Fanalab on screen and let me just switch this around. Alright, so in terms of my Fanalab settings on the wheelbase, I've got the rotation set to 900, which matches in-game ACC. The overall force feedback strength I've got set at 60%. So that, coupled with the setting I have in-game, gives a decent weight, probably a bit on the heavy side for some cars, but I drive the Audi R8 Evo 2 normally, and the steering is a little bit lighter on that compared to some of the other cars, but tends not to impact me too much. I've got the interpolation, inertia, friction dampers all set to 0. The interpolation I have tied with the idea of having that between completely off and 1. 1 gives a much less sharp impact over curbs. But then I did find I was losing a little bit of detail, a little bit of fidelity in the force feedback signal. The force effect intensity at 100, everything else is just set at 100%. One thing that I am going to be kind of messing around with is bringing that down to maybe the force effect down to maybe 90 or 80, because I still want the detail, but sometimes going over certain curves in the game can be very, very sharp, very noisy in the force feedback. It doesn't feel as clean as the likes of AMS2, for example. The feedback, it's still very detailed, but it's a bit muted, a bit less precise, a bit less perfect, but still very good. But this is what I'm racing on at the moment. Well, raced on this for a long time, and like I say, it probably does need a bit of tweaking just to smoothen out some of the harshness over curves, particularly the ones at Paul Ricard. The curb at the bus stop at Watkins Glen, for example, can be quite sharp as well, particularly in the BMW DM4 front engine. The way over the front axle can be quite tough, you know, on the feedback. But yeah, that's it there. If you have any better suggestions as to what I should be running, pop them into the comments and I'll be sure to try them out. But yeah, hopefully this helps somebody with a direct drive base kind of thinking, okay, what do I do, where do I start with this? Now I will say finally that this this setup on the feedback is me trying to get a more direct feel for more competitive type racing, right? I mean, it's realistic to a point, but you could probably get a better rubbery feel, a bit more realism by bringing up some of the, you know, with the interpolation, which when the interpolation is set to 1, in fact, it does feel better, but a bit less direct. So that's the caveat. It doesn't feel fake at all the way it is now, but you know, just to be aware of that. Anyway, hopefully this helps somebody, and yeah, cheers.